Blind Fury XXX says Corbyn should bring up Assange and freedom of the press under threat from Tory party. Here. I believe he should too, but he won't. Horrorfan says he needs to bring up the NHS. Bojo's no show on Neil. Yes, he very much needs to do that and tie that into trust. Yes, and the Brexit document he used today, he needs to pin Boris to the wall. So the people in the chat at the moment who are just waiting for this debate to start tonight have said that Corbyn should bring up Assange. He won't do that. And then Horrorfan24 said Corbyn should bring up the NHS. Bojo's no show on Andrew Neil, of which he will, no doubt. And the Brexit document he used today, he will as well. But I think this might come up, Horrorfan. This is breaking news. Actually breaking news. In the last hour, I think. UK diplomat in charge of Brexit at the British Embassy in the US resigns over having to, quote, peddle half-truths. That's quite the headline, isn't it? It really is quite the headline. That's amazing. So, I think it was the CNN. It was CNN I saw this on first. Senior British diplomat in US quits with tirade over Brexit half-truths. You've got to read this. I'm going to read it out to you. You've got to know all about this. A senior British diplomat in the US has quit with a blast at the UK government over Brexit, saying she could, quote, no longer, quote, peddle half-truths on behalf of political leaders she did not trust. Now, what you've got to understand is, so this is something that people are really, on the street, people like me, I suppose, don't really give too much thought to, of which really I should, because there are a lot of people working within the government who are there and they have been there a long time and they're not evil. They're actually really good people. They're usually quite upper class people that come from a certain background, but they're tireless. And they are, much like any other cross-section of society, there are good, mostly majority good, and then there are some bad. And obviously, the job of a civil servant in our government is to remain neutral. No matter what's going on, you've got to remain neutral. And historically, they have done a very, very good job of remaining neutral. And they are generally, though, upper-class people. And I say that with a smile on my face because this woman's name, this diplomat's name is Alexandra Hall. So, okay, she loved her name that much. I know I'm going to name, I like Hall. I'm going to name it twice. I'm going to call myself Hall twice. It's such a good name. It'd be like me saying, I like Dimmack. I'm going to call myself Gordon Dimmack. Posh, doesn't it? I could go and get the papers. In a searing resignation letter, this article from CNN continued, delivered just over a week before the UK general election, Alexandra Hall. when I first read it, I thought, CNN, you keep making a grammatical error here. My God, her name really is Hall. Alexandra Hall, the lead envoy for Brexit in the British Embassy in Washington. I'll repeat that. The lead envoy for Brexit in the British Embassy in Washington, in America, said that she had become increasingly dismayed by the demands placed on the British civil service to deliver messages on Brexit which were not fully honest. So they have to remain impartial, but historically the people have bent the truth, etc. But it looks like she's saying, no, look, it's just, there's so much lies going on right now. Behind the scenes, we're working on things that you're not privy to. I don't know, but you can really look into this and just go, okay, there's red flags flying all over the place right now. And Jeremy Corbyn's not the one who's in government. He's not the one who's been doing all these policies. So whatever the problem is, that these people are running around with their hair on fire, they're obviously saying this is something that we've got at the moment. It's obviously something to do with Brexit as well, as you'll find out. This is where CNN go anyway. The reluctance of Britain's leaders to play straight with the public on Brexit. The reluctance of Britain's leaders to play straight with the public on Brexit, Hall said, had undermined the credibility of UK diplomats abroad. Her position had come, quote, unbearable personally and untenable professionally, she wrote in the letter, which has been obtained by CNN. There she is. She doesn't look upper class at all, does she? What? Hall's decision to quit and her no-bolds-barred resignation letter comes at a moment of deep political sensitivity for the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who is seeking re-election on the promise that he can get Brexit done. And as I'm recording this video, is due to appear on stage on the BBC in a live debate with Jeremy Corbyn, who just might be bringing this up. I know I would if I was him in that position. Johnson has been ahead in opinion polls, which we shouldn't believe, everybody. Opinion polls are there to influence decision, not to inform it. Johnson has been ahead in opinion polls, CNN say, but as his lead has narrowed in recent days, officials are nervous about anything that could undermine his chances of winning a parliamentary majority for his Conservative Party in the election next Thursday. An official at the Foreign Office, who was not authorised to brief the press, said it anyway, confirmed that Hall had resigned but had not seen the letter. Yeah, mate. Yeah. She's gone. I haven't seen the letter, mate. Nah. An official. It's probably the janitor now in CNN. A Foreign Office spokesperson said, quote, we won't comment on the detail of an individual's resignation, Downing Street referred CNN to the Foreign Office. In her resignation letter addressed to Deputy Ambassador Michael Tathan, in which Hall shared widely with colleagues in the diplomatic service, she said that her departure had nothing to do with being, quote, for or against Brexit per se, but instead was an expression of frustration about how the policy was being carried out. Is she saying here, listen, we're going to sell off the NHS? This is where I think Jeremy Corbyn might go here, on this debate that's coming up. Hall, a 33-year veteran of the UK Foreign Service and the former ambassador to Georgia, said UK institutions had been undermined and the reputation of British democracy abroad had been imperilled. Of course it has. You know, they look at Brexit, people abroad, and just go, well, people voted for something and you obviously don't want to do it. You're stopping in the way of it. I've seen Australian Sky News broadcasts where they basically say, yeah, mate, the Poms just don't want to get Brexit done. Yeah, that's a terrible Australian accent, I know, but you see what I mean. I have been increasingly dismayed by the way in which our political leaders have tried to deliver Brexit with reluctance to address honestly, even with our own citizens, the challenges and trade-offs which Brexit involves, the use of misleading or disingenuous arguments about the implications of the various options before us. She's talking about the NHS. I'm sure this is where Corbyn will go with it. And some behaviour towards our institutions, which, were it happening in another country, we would almost certainly as diplomats have received instructions to register our concern, she wrote in her letter. This is serious. And I tell you what, how long is it, guys? How long is it before diplomat Alexandra Hall is outed by the Telegraph as a Russian agent? How long before the Telegraph say, yeah, this Alexandra Hall, her actions are distinctly Russian. You don't know what's coming to you, Alexandra Hall. Much of the blame for the strategy has been pinned on Johnson's lead advisor, Dominic Cummings, who ran the Vote Leave campaign in the Brexit referendum of 2016 and is credited with creating the Take Back Control slogan. Cummings has been unrepentant over his tactics. Yeah. He said, get out and speak to voters. Get out and speak to people outside of London who aren't rich about Brexit. Boris Johnson did today. He had to cancel a stump speech because 5 protesters turned up. But Hall, this article continues, made clear in her letter that she was not motivated to step down by any personal convictions over the outcome of Brexit, and that she had enthusiastically accepted the position as Brexit counsellor at the Washington Embassy in 2018. Quote, I took this position with a sincere commitment, indeed passion to do my part, to do the very best of my abilities to help achieve a successful outcome on Brexit, she wrote in her resignation letter. Her complaints have echoes of the discontent of some diplomats in the US Foreign Service under US President Donald Trump. Since he was elected, scores of diplomats have left the State Department and senior roles have been left unfilled. Hall's resignation is a sign that under Johnson, there is similar unease. As UK Brexit counsel, Hall was tasked with explaining Britain's approach to leaving the European Union to US lawmakers and policymakers on Capitol Hill and in the White House. She suggested that her diplomatic role, intended to be politically neutral, was co-opted to deliver messages that were, quote, neither fully honest nor politically impartial. Probably fear-mongering Corbyn, I would have thought. Hall said that she had filed a formal complaint about being asked to convey overtly partisan language on Brexit in Washington. Hall said she was resigning now rather than after the election so that her decision could not be portrayed as a reaction to the result. She is expected to leave the embassy next week and is quitting the diplomatic service completely. Each person has to find their own level of comfort with the situation, she wrote in her letter. Since I have no other element to my job except Brexit, I find my position has become unbearable personally and untenable professionally. Attempts by CNN to reach Hall for further comment were unsuccessful. So there you go. The Brexit secretary, or the Brexit diplomat to Washington, has resigned. I wonder what old Auntie Beeb is saying about this. Which is diplomat resigns over Brexit half-truth. Yeah, I mean, they didn't mess about, the BBC didn't. They didn't mess about at all. That's a proper headline. That's a proper headline. They usually sugarcoat things like this that are embarrassing to to Britain and the UK and their allies, like Israel. Can't mention that. Demonetised. So there you go. A diplomat has resigned because, yeah, she's basically saying, yeah, Boris Johnson and his cronies are trying to get me to lie to everybody. That really does, that should give you pause for thought, shouldn't it? As to how broken our democracy truly is. Thanks very much for watching. Please make sure you subscribe. Hit the bell below so you get a notification of when I drop further videos. And support independent media. Make all world fiction again.